everyone, it's Marian and welcome to my Wasteless Life. In this video, let's talk about repotting plants. Thank you so much for joining me today, and if you're new, this is my Wasteless Life, where I take you along my plant and sustainable lifestyle journey and share with you some of my tips and tricks along the way. And so spring is finally here, and I know you're excited to repot your plants. I am too. I've been making plans for it for a few weeks now. I've got my soil, I got my planters, and everything that I need for my repotting. So as I do that, I want to share with you some of my tips and tricks when it comes to repotting plants, when and when not to repot our plants, the types of repotting, how to repot, and as well as some repotting aftercare. So let's get on to it. When should we repot our plants? Repot your plants whenever your plants need them, but usually the best time to repot them is during this time of the year, early spring towards the start of the growing season, because that is like the best condition for them to get repotted and make sure that they adjust well to their new home once they've been repotted. And signs that you need to look out for that your plants already need repotting is number one, you already see roots growing out of the drainage hole, kind of like with this one. As you can see with this Cebu Blue Pothos, I already have roots growing out at the bottom, so this one definitely needs repotting. And sometimes even if you don't have roots already coming out of the drainage holes or on the top, it can be really root bound, and the way you know that is if you've been watering your plants way too often, way more than you normally would. And another reason to also think about repotting your plants is if it's been in the same soil for quite a long time, maybe for at least more than a year. You can see the effects of being in oil soil in your plants when you see slower growth or smaller growth in your plants, and that's very likely to your soil not getting enough nutrients, or the condition of the soil, like the soil pH is way too high or way too low for your plants to properly absorb any nutrients that you are introducing back into the soil. So it's probably time to change up the soil of your houseplant. And another issue would be pest issues. Usually a lot of pests just live on the topsoil of the plant, which you could quickly remedy by changing the topsoil, but some of them, they're already way into the soil and they're not necessarily beneficial for your houseplants, and they're competing with the roots when it comes to the nutrients found in the soil. So that's also another time that you should think about, or you probably should change up the soil of your houseplant. Another reason that we should repot is probably a lot more common than we think, is when we constantly drop our plants, the soil spills and a lot less soil is in the pot. So it's time to replenish the pot, or it's a lot better to repot the entire thing so that your plant is properly anchored in the soil. So those are the reasons and signs that you should look out for in your houseplants to know if you should repot them. But when to not repot your plants. First, when you just bought your plants, you should give your plants time to acclimate to your environment before repotting them, because the adjustment to your environment plus dealing with the shock of being repotted might be too much for your houseplant. So make sure they acclimated to your environment first before you think about repotting them. Another time that you shouldn't repot is when your plant is in dormancy. So kind of opposite of your plants during the growing season, when it's pushing out a lot of growth. When it's not the growing season, your plant is not pushing out a lot of growth, and it's in resting period, hence dormancy period. So repotting them, they might not have the energy or the capacity to adjust to the shock transplant. Repot your plants while they are dormant. You also shouldn't be repotting your plants when your plants is ailing and also experience root rot. Sometimes it is okay to repot your plants after you discovered it experiencing root rot, especially if the rotting is not extensive. But in most cases, you need to do a proper rehab on your plants instead of just repotting them into fresh soil. It might not help your plant produce new roots or come back from its ailment if you just repot them. I've discussed more of that in my Houseplants Back to Basics series videos, so do check them out. I'll link them up here and also down in the description. And lastly, it's not recommended to repot your plants if you just recently repotted them, meaning it's been less than a year since you repotted them. What are the types of repotting, and what's the difference between transplanting and repotting? So the difference between transplanting and repotting, when it comes to repotting, it's basically you're going from one pot to another. With transplanting, it's usually dealing with propagations or seedlings. Transplanting usually involves giving the plant a completely different environment to live in, like with your propagations or seedlings that start with a plug and then you move them onto a container or to a pot, or you put a plant from a pot and plant them on the ground outside. So that is transplanting. For me, changing mediums for your houseplants, even though you're still keeping them in a container, I would also consider that transplanting. For example, switching from soil to leca or switching your plants from sphagnum moss to soil, I would consider that transplanting. And when it comes to types of repotting, there's a couple of them. One is upsizing, where you repot your plant to a slightly larger pot. Usually you'll want to repot your plants to a pot that is 2 inches larger. For example, from a 6-inch pot to an 8-inch pot. Usually you don't want to go a lot bigger than that because that could be detrimental to your plants as well, especially when you are repotting plants that do not like getting overwatered. Another type of repotting is just changing up your pots, still keeping your plants in the same size of pot, but you're changing the type of planter that you're putting in. For example, from the plastic nursery pot to a terracotta pot, or from a terracotta to a ceramic pot. Number one is to use fresh soil mix. You could either use a pre-made soil mix or you could make one yourself. And for this video, I'm doing both. For the pre-made mix, I got this Aroid mix. This one is 8 quarts. It costs about $12. And I think this is a really good soil mix, although I haven't tried it yet. I'm just about to try it now. And this one is a sustainable soil mix. And it came from a small business, like I said, in Atlanta, Georgia, called the Victorian Atlanta. I believe they have their physical shop in Atlanta, but they also have their online shop. And I did buy it from them online. I followed them on Instagram and I saw that they just came out with an Aroid mix. And this one is a pretty large bag. It's a lot larger than I expect it to be. I think I'll be able to pot 3 to 4 plants with this one. And what I love about this soil mix, it is all from sustainable materials. They no longer use peat moss or perlite to be more sustainable. For the Aroid soil mix, they have a blend of coconut coir, coir bark, pine bark, worm castings, charcoal, and rice hulls. And this is perfect for monsteras, philodendrons, anthuriums, rhaphidophorus, hyacinthus, ficus, and more. And they have different soil mixes as well. They have just, I think, the regular tropical mix, and they also have mixes for cacti and succulents. And I think they have another one, I forgot which one. So if you want to check them out, I would leave their description down below. And I think the soil mix is reasonably priced. It might be slightly pricier than the soil mixes that you usually buy from the garden centers, like the Miracle-Gro ones, but I do think it's worth it because it is sustainably made. And especially if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, I would just go to their store and pick up an 8 quart, and they have also something bigger than this. And this one is $12. I believe the tropical soil is only $10. The only thing is if you're buying from their online shop, the shipping can get very expensive. So this one, the shipping cost was $12.50. So essentially it doubled the price of the soil mix, but I really wanted to try it out, so I paid the shipping cost anyways. This one I'll be using for my Anthurium clenidarium that I am repotting, and also maybe a couple of my monsteras. And when it comes to mixing your own soil mix, it's really just up to your preference and what you think your houseplant needs. There's no right or wrong soil mix to use, in my opinion. You can buy a pre-made one or create your own. It's really just up to your preference. I already did a little bit more extensive video when it comes to soil mixes, again in my houseplants back to basics video, and even in my most recent video, my plant care kit. Do check them out. Links are down in the description. So you determine the type of soil that you would like to use, and of course you're going to need planters, and there are many different types of planters, but the most commonly used are terracotta, ceramic, and plastic pots. I haven't been shopping for plants lately, but I have been shopping for planters, and I just want to share with you the recent ones that I got. So most of these planters I got either from Ross or Marshalls, and of course Home Depot or Lowe's. But this one, I believe I got this one from Ross. This is $5.99. I got a larger one, a larger version of it that I'm using for my Birds of Paradise. That one is 10 inches. This one is about 6 inches. And this one is basically just a cash bow because it doesn't have a drainage hole. And since this plant is in leca, it's perfect for it. Normally I will have a water reservoir for this one, but this one doesn't have any water, just a little bit, and it is painted blue on the inside. It's very textured on the outside, and I can't believe it's only $5.99, which I think for this size and for the quality, I think it is a good price. And the larger one that I got is only $7.99. So it's very hard to find a 10-inch decorative pot that is only $7.99. But if you go to your Ross and Marshalls or even Home Goods right now, you can find them, and they start at $5.99, and they're really good quality ceramic pots. And here's another one that I got. This one has a drainage hole this time, And this one is also $7.99 at Marshall's. It also comes with a saucer, but it's like together with a pot, but it does have holes for the water to drain out. This one is about an 8-inch pot, and when you put plants in ceramic pots, they retain moisture for a lot longer. So you would want to use your ceramic pots for plants that you don't want to water too often, or plants that would like to be evenly moist or not get dried out too quickly. And this is the pot that I got for this one. I got two of them because I thought it's really cute. I usually like my ceramic pots just white when it comes to the ceramic ones, but this one is just so cute, and green is my favorite color. And this one also has a drainage hole, and this one's $7.99 each, and I got it from Marshall's as well. And another type of pots is plastic pots. So kind of like the ceramic pots, they would allow your plants to retain moisture for a lot longer, so you should use it on plants that do not like to get dried out way too quickly, and it's also a lot lighter than ceramic pots. When it comes to planters, terracotta pots are my favorite pots to plant in because they're cheap, they're relatively available anywhere, and they're also the most sustainable. And especially for a lot of our houseplants who do not like getting overwatered or having wet feet, terracotta pot is the best option for them because terracotta pots are porous. They will help break out excess moisture and also provide aeration for your houseplants. When it's time to repot your plants, pick a sunny day to do it just because it's the best environment and condition for them to be repotted. You want lots of light to be available to them after you repot them. And also you want to repot them when the soil is completely dry. That way it's easier to take them out of the planter that they're in, and to also get rid of the soil away from the roots with minimal damage as possible. And when you see presence of pests in the soil when you're doing this, make sure you wash the roots before you transplant it or repot it into another pot with another soil mix. Once I'm ready to repot, I like to put a bit of soil at the bottom. If I could, a third of the way, but sometimes that's not possible. But at least a good layer of soil so that the roots have some more spaces to grow into. So after that, you place the plant into a new pot with the top of the roots at least an inch below the rim of the planter. You would want to do that so especially if you are top watering, the soil does not spill over. And if you're using a moss bowl, you should position it into the soil before you start filling it up with soil, and fill all the empty spaces with the soil. And normally I would do is I would tap as I fill it up just to make sure every crook and cranny of the pot is being filled with soil, but at the same time I'm not overly compacting it. And normally I would like to use pre-moistened soil, especially if that soil is mostly peat moss. But if for some reason I cannot have pre-moistened soil, I would water my plants after repotting. I would slowly pour water from the top. Bottom watering might take quite a long time, especially if the soil hasn't been pre-moistened. So what I will do is I will slowly pour water from the top just to make sure no soil spills over. And once that drains down, you would also see the soil go down as it gets compacted. So after that, I would add some more soil on the top just to make sure it's at the level that I want, and pour a little bit more water into it. Just arrange the soil to make sure that the plant is properly anchored into the pot. And after that, I wouldn't add more soil to it because, like I said, I don't want it to be overly compact. I want to give the roots more space to grow as well as to provide some soil aeration. And that's pretty much it. Repotting plants, transplanting plants is straightforward. If you want, you could add decorative rocks or even mulching on top of the soil. That way you could prevent fungus gnats from laying their eggs on the top soil. Or also, if you want to help your plant retain moisture for a lot longer, putting a little bit of mulch on top would help with that. After repotting, make sure to put them in a bright sunny spot so that they would wake out any excess moisture, because when we repot, we tend to water the plants a lot more than we normally would. Getting enough light would help them with adjusting pretty quickly to their new home and also get over their shock transplant. And after you repot your plants, it is possible for your house plant to experience shock. I have experienced this with my Ruby Ficus elastica. I would see some of the leaves drooping. I've experienced this with my Hoya carrii. I thought the plant was dying after I repotted it, but now it has bounced back. So you just need to give your plants a little bit of time to recover from their shock transplant. So wait at least 2 weeks, give your plants a chance to recover from their repotting and shock transplant, and surely your plants would bounce back and will be better than ever. Do pay a little bit more attention to the lighting and to the watering of your houseplant, at least during the first month after repotting them, just to make sure that your plant is getting the enough light and water it needs, but don't do anything dramatic or drastic when it comes to those two things. And also do not over fertilize. When you repotted your plants, you give them fresh soil that has lots of nutrients in it, so don't worry about having to fertilize them right away or giving them extra nutrients. Just fertilize as normal. You don't have to fertilize them too early or fertilize them a little bit too much just because you've given them new soil. So yeah, those are my tips for you when it comes to repotting your houseplants, and I hope you enjoyed repotting with me as well. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're new here, I hope you subscribe. I come up with houseplants and sustainable lifestyle videos every week, and if you haven't yet, go check out these videos up here until my next one. But until then, I see you, I appreciate you, take care of yourself and each other, and have a plentiful day. Bye!